I go, we even got a complaint once. She was like, really? And I'm like, yeah, we did. We were
Yeah.
too much
We
ourselves
were we were
and
talking too
talked about
much.
Christmas.
How
Oh,
dare
it was
you?
just terrible. How dare you
How
talk
dare
about your
you?
personal lives
How
on a thing
dare you
about
have a life?
writing?
Yeah. How dare you have a life?
And I'm like, you don't want a glimpse of our actual writers' lives on the writers' podcast. That would be terrible.
Well, welcome to Pros Talking Prose.
Welcome, welcome to
Today,
Pros Talking Pros.
today Troy and I we're both very cranky. So you're gonna get cranky Stacy and cranky Troy. Cranky Troy Stacy is because I have the worst headache. I went to bed last night like after partying after this football game. We just stayed up and talked with my kids until like 1:30 in the morning. So then this morning I got up and I just
Oh,
like so I have a hangover apparently, even though I didn't drink a thing. And then Troy, he got up on the wrong side of the bed, had to deal with a kind of complicated author
yeah,
issue, so he's cranky. He's
yeah.
cranky.
Well, that,
Okay.
and staying up binging Bad Bunny songs all night long, you know, doing
In
translations.
translation. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I kept having, I
translation.
don't know, I kept having dreams about running through cornfields.
Oh, sugarcane. It was
Oh,
sugarcane.
was it sugarcane?
You got it wrong.
Oh
You
yeah, it
got it
looked like,
wrong, I think.
well, I don't know.
I
It
don't,
just
I don't know.
reminded me of, it just reminded me of the back 40 out here in my behind my house.
Yeah, the
Um,
sugarcane or the cornfields out here. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Anyway, so well, today Troy and I, other than complaining about our lives, we're gonna talk about how to build a community, like and why community is good. And I think this really kind of segues nicely because you and I, like, I think the backstory of Troy and Stacy and how we met was because of this very thing. There was a gal
Hmm.
that lived here in Boise. Her name was Stacy Ennis, and she started a group called the Idaho Editors and Writers Association. And we would meet once a month for lunch. And she
Hmm.
would bring in people to talk to us and stuff. But most of the time, we just sat around talking shop and goofing off. Um, and it was great because we could support each other, give each other advice, kind of, it felt very
Hmm.
much like water cooler talk, right? Like it was just like, oh yeah, this is what I'm
Hmm.
dealing with. How do I do this?
And it was largely editors
It was
too. I mean,
largely
it was
editors.
called
Mhm.
editors and writers, but like for the most part, I mean, some
Most
people
of
were
us were
both,
editors.
but for the
Yeah, a lot.
most part,
Yeah,
it was editors. It was an editors group, which is
it was
a
great.
little unusual, I think.
I
Yeah,
think
but it was
locally,
great.
yeah,
It was
because
really
I
great.
mean, we were local and we were building up each other. We didn't feel like we were in direct competition with each other. Each of us had our own little specialties that we
Hmm.
all dealt with and we were good at, and some of us were better at other things, and it was really cool to come together because then like when you come across a genre or something that you didn't or couldn't work with, or a particular client that you didn't have time to deal with, you knew some local editors that you could
Hmm.
refer
You
those
knew
clients
somebody.
to.
Yeah.
And it was really nice. Still is nice. These are still, a lot of these people are still
Yeah.
our friends. And I still am in good
Hmm.
contact with many of them. In fact, I'm speaking for one of their groups here in the next couple months. Anyway, so I really loved it, and it meant a lot to me because, and I credit a lot of you guys in those early days of my business for making me who I am, because it was because of all the advice that I got from that group that
Yeah.
really helped me. But I will say that Troy and I are probably the dynamic duo that kind of resulted from that whole those luncheons. And
Yes, for
Troy and I
sure.
kind of we were conspiratorial
There
in
were
many ways.
many times when I was like, man, I love that girl, but my head would just drop into my hands as I'm like, oh, she's making the same mistakes I made when I started out. And I'm like,
Yeah.
please don't do that.
Yeah. No, but it was
But it
helpful
was
because you would tell me
in the
that,
long run, it was great.
Hmm.
Yeah. One thing was that, well, and we can talk about this as we go through this topic, but I mean, part of
Hmm.
it was that Stacy was very open to feedback and
Hmm.
wanted to know. Like she didn't come in there going, I'm running my great Stacy Edits by Stacy business and I got
Hmm.
nothing to learn. She was coming in there and going, oh my God, I have this problem. And I'm like, oh. And in some cases, I was like, oh, you created that problem. In other cases, I was
Right.
like, oh,
I think we
let's
still
help you
have
fix that problem before it becomes a real problem.
I think we
You
still have
know?
these
Yeah,
conversations. They're very resonant with like
we
what goes
still do.
on.
Oh my goodness, it's still happening. But anyway,
But it's
that's
great.
all
It's
good stuff.
really good. It's really good stuff. So I really love it. But yeah, so the reason we wanted to talk about this in terms of writers is because it's something that this is a very this is very isolation prone kind of business, right? It's really easy to kind of get sucked into
Mhm.
this, like, this is my world. When you tell people you're writing, it's almost like you get put up on this ethereal plane of like, oh, untouchable. But at the same time, people aspire to do that, but they don't know the first thing about it or really even kind of like
Mhm.
the discipline and the hard work that goes into it. There are a lot of people, I think they think that writing a book is just, oh, don't you just sit down at your computer and write? Like they don't understand. And
Yeah.
so I think that this is one of those things where we want to call out the myth that writing is solitary, but it's not. Um,
It
we
doesn't have to
It doesn't
be.
have to be.
Yeah.
Publishing is not a solitary thing either. It's just very much, but writing is not a solitary thing either. And trying to
No.
run a business is like Troy mentioned, trying to run a business, especially when you're just starting out, and especially in author business, is like trying to run a startup, right? Like you're like trying to figure out
Mhm.
how does this all come together? And so a community kind of helps so that you're not second guessing every decision. It gives you a good sounding board, and it prevents you from paying the wrong people. It prevents you from making the same mistakes that other people have made especially like in the group that Troy and I were part of, where it's just very open and nurturing in that way. So if
Mhm.
you're doing this alone, I guess the key thing here is if you're doing everything alone, you're not necessarily independent. You're isolated. You're not just
Right.
you need to
There's a
there's a
there's a
balance.
critical difference there.
Hmm.
There is a
Right.
critical difference and a critical balance there. That's and part of it is just having someone that understands what you're doing in the first place.
Right.
Like even has any comprehension of what this daily author's life looks like. Um and the just the natural friction that causes with everything, with all kinds of
Right.
things. Same as many other things work that way, but writing and doing things artistically is a unique way, a unique method of that. But also having people to go to for advice or even just as a sounding board for like, is this a good idea before you invest months and hours of your time in doing
Right.
something, or before you invest a ton of money in doing something. And when I first started out, there were a lot of online groups, but in-person groups were definitely like further away for me. I lived in a very
Right.
rural area of Idaho at that time as well. And so there were literally within my radius, there were three writers that were relatively close by. Now, two of them were extremely well known, so that was helpful
That is
to
helpful.
have somebody that was a sounding board that was
That like
like
knows what they're doing.
I'll just call it out. It was Frank Peretti and his wife. and she
Mm.
writes children's books, and he, of course, writes Christian fiction on a much grander scale than
Yeah.
anything that I've written. Um, and extremely popular guy, but also extremely down to earth,
Mm-hmm.
just a guy, a
Mm-hmm.
guy who played guitar and was a lot of fun. Um, but at the same time, like even for both of us, like that was not enough. Like we went to conferences and stuff because in our area, having a local writers group just meant having dinner at one of
Yeah.
our houses. Like it wasn't really, there wasn't enough community to like get
Well,
that
then
sounding board and stuff off of.
let's
So
define what
yeah.
a community is. Then I'll start with a community. What a community is not. A community is not a Facebook group. A community is not going to be people who just cheer you on and don't challenge you. And a community
Hmm.
is not going to be someplace you just sit and jab, 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 and there's no movement, there's no growth, there's no enrichment. So those are the three things I think I would say a community is not. So you need to make sure that I mean a Facebook group and a social media group is nice, but it's not the same as like what Troy said, which is where when you're attending something in person where you can
Right.
actually feel that there's very much
Well,
something to say for community being a personal
in
in
person,
person kind of like
yeah.
thing. There's that connection that we're
In
looking
yeah,
for as humans, right?
in person is much better because you can read body language and you have all kinds of things like that that you can do. A Facebook group can be a basis for a
Yeah, it could be.
community,
Yeah.
and you can have online community that is meaningful. It's just harder work to make it
Mm-hmm.
meaningful than having an in-person group. And it's also more difficult to make sure it doesn't get out of hand. Um, and what I mean by out of hand is, so we had a group that was called the Authors and Editors Group, and when it started, there were maybe 100 of us that were
Mm-hmm.
in a Facebook group. Um, by the time it finally, all of us original members abandoned it and left, there were like 1,200, 1,500 people in that group, and it was no longer a community. It was just a place filled with post after post after post after post after post.
And that's my point
So
is like that you're
there's
not
a, yeah,
what if it's all just about
yeah,
self promotion and trying to like, what can I do to build my brand within this group? That's not really a community. That's not really a community. So one of the things that I wanted to point
right.
out, what a community is it's strategic and you have strategic relationships. So like I said, with Troy's in our group, it was strategic in that we met with these people and we became friends with these people and and the strategic relationship came in where like so for example if I was working on a manuscript that I didn't know how to approach because I didn't have that genre specialty, I could look into inside of our group to say, hey, does anybody in this group know how to handle this, and be able to hand that off to somebody that I know and trust in that group. So strategic relationships are also they can be business relationships that you have. Like for example, we were just talking to one of our marketing specialists with the Alibi Syndicate. We were talking about how excited we are to go down to Vegas, and we're looking to create some universal links for some things that we're doing. And I said, well, I'm going to contact Genius Link because we go to karaoke with these guys and they're awesome, and and it was funny, it was like, they're not going to be any different or probably, you know what I mean? Like there's probably several companies out there with the same kind of thing, but strategically in my head, these guys, we've met them, we've sat down with them 2 years in a row. They've been amazing. They're fun. They know us by our first names. We know them. It's just, when I'm buying from Genius Link, I know who I'm buying from these guys. Like I'm buying from Jason and the guys, right? Like, so
Right.
it just feels better. So that's a strategic relationship, right? Like I feel like that's something that where I can nurture them, they can nurture me. And then
Right.
when it comes to like, and I know you have some of these relationships as an author, you can have strategic relationships as well. So do you have any examples of like some strategic relationships that you've kind of like leveraged like in your career that would be kind
Well,
of fun to hear?
you know what's funny? Yeah, I mean there are, but a lot of them started as personal relationships just because we're authors in this same field. So
Yeah.
I often use the example of, so there was an online group, but there used to be a thing called K-boards. Those of you who have not been
Oh
around
my
a while
gosh.
have no freaking idea
Oh my
what I am talking
gosh.
about.
You're literally making us
But they were,
dinosaurs.
I know. It's like, anyway, we're like Jurassic Parking over here. But anyway, um, but there were groups within those boards that were fairly isolated groups. So, and people were writing similar fiction and stuff like that. So there
Hmm.
were groups of us that then we became friends as a result of being on these groups. It was way better than Facebook groups ever
Hmm.
was or ever can be.
Hmm.
But because there were a lot more individual chats and things like that. But one of those partnerships was with a friend of mine who was she she's in South Africa. She
Mm.
wrote very religious focused fiction that was horror, right? It was the
Ooh.
horror side of
Yeah.
religion, some of it dark romance, some of it even a little steamy, stuff like that. Well, of course, my
Wow.
first three novels was a very psychological thriller, dark, religious undertones thing, right? So we
Hmm.
met, we were talking on those boards, and she was like, I need somebody who has similar religious and Bible knowledge to me, but that knows other things to write this particular book with me. And I said, absolutely, I will do it. So there was a book that's called Satanarium. You can look it up.
Mm.
Her pen name is Poppet. That's the pen name that she uses. It's
Oh.
part of what's called the Dark Saga series. And we wrote that book together. We wrote it in about 4 weeks,
Oh my
62,000
gosh.
words, going back and forth every day. It was insane. But it was actually wonderful at the time to get that draft out that quickly. We edited through it. We sent it off to a publisher. They accepted it because we knew the publisher from the group that we were a part
Yeah.
of.
See, there it
And as a
is.
result, I'm a member of International Thriller Writers, a lifetime member. I pay no dues ever because I was published by a publisher that's on their approved publisher list. With that book was someone that I met in a community online that we had shared interests, and then we leveraged that. So we were friends first, had
Hmm.
discussions first, and then leveraged that into a partnership. Vincent Zandri's the same way. Obviously,
Hmm.
he's our editor at large for Alibi
Yeah. For
Syndicate
Alibi
Press, helps us
Syndicate. Yeah.
find talent, bring people in, all that kind of stuff. And him and I started out as writer friends in these writer
Hmm.
communities, talking, especially when he swapped and kind of went indie,
Hmm.
from a more traditional approach that he had had before and started doing some hybrid with both different things. And now we have written stuff together, we have sold stuff together, we have worked together on freelance projects that are entirely outside of fiction, where I've
Hmm.
been his editor more than once on
Yeah.
those type of projects. And now we're doing a publisher together, right? And it's all of that started as a friendship turned into a strategic partnership that has served us well for a long time. And we have
Hmm.
some pretty incredible stories as a result of that, right? So they started as friendships, they started in a community and turned into strategic partnerships that have been, good for both of our careers over the years.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, just really cool stuff, and all of it started centered around community. Like Vince and I, like we've probably met in person one time. He lives in New York. I live in Idaho. Like the gal I wrote with in South Africa, we never met in person
Hmm.
ever. Like, and it's unlikely we ever will, you know, for obvious reasons, right? But it doesn't matter because the community that we were in allowed us to strike up partnerships and be friends and co-authors and all of those things. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, also, well, another key strategy or key reason to have a community is for that peer accountability, right? Like, it's nice when I
Hmm.
got to meet with everybody every month. And then we we would sit down and we would talk about like what we're working on. And sometimes if like there was a peer pressure, actually. I felt it. Like if I didn't come in and I didn't have a report of like saying, yeah, I'm working on about 3 manuscripts this month and these are the things we're doing. It was almost like if somebody came in and said, well, I'm still, I haven't gotten any manuscripts this month, but you could kind of feel like there was this moment of like where they were like, oh man, I need to like kick it into gear. And so there was like this kind of like
Hmm.
push for all of us to keep working, to keep going. So I feel like that's a good part of this. With critique groups specifically for writers, I know that this is a thing. You turn in,
Yeah.
chapters and you know but sometimes
Hmm.
some critique groups, if they're not active like that, it can just become just a sit around and talk,
Well,
talk coffee. And that's not always great. So make sure that there's like a peer
no.
accountability in
Yeah.
some way, I guess.
Yeah, because critique groups are different than other writer communities. So, and we should probably break down different
Okay.
types of writing
Well,
community because there's
let's do that in a
professional
minute.
organizations.
Mm-hmm.
There's professional organizations, and it breaks down all the way down to the level of individual critique groups, which is usually ideally, I will say ideally under 10 people.
Yeah, that would be
And the reason
good.
I say that is because then you get in the critique rotation,
Yeah.
because generally what happens is you're having a rotation where everybody turns in certain amounts of material to be critiqued by everyone in the group. And usually not everyone turns in stuff every single time, because otherwise that turns into almost a full-time job, right? So you have a couple people submitting however many word piece you guys have agreed upon, and you listen to it and you read it and you give them some feedback. Or there's been a couple that I've been a part of where you meet and anybody who wants to that week can share by either reading their stuff or sending it ahead of time for people to critique or whatever the case may be. But usually there's some rules around critique group,
Mm-hmm.
and the idea is that you are actively getting feedback. So the other idea behind it is if you are not actively writing, actively submitting things, your peers are looking at you and saying, "What's up, dude? Give me something."
Give me
Right. And
something.
so it's a certain amount of peer pressure. And like, especially if you're writing something that people are really into, they're like, hey, I'm really looking forward to more of this story. Where are you at with that? How's that going? Right. And
Mm-hmm.
so that gives you not only your external guideline or deadlines, which you should set, and your individual guideline deadlines for yourself, which you also should set as a part of your goal setting and things like that. But you've
Mm-hmm.
got a group of people who's like, hey, we are invested in your lives, your life, we're invested in the things that you're doing. Where is your stuff? Are you writing? If you're not writing, why are you not writing? Like, where is your stuff?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a critique groups are a great place to find that accountability. And you should have inside whatever type of community that you should have some peer accountability that says, are you writing? Are you actively doing the thing that we all say we're writers in this group? Are you actively doing the thing that makes you a writer? Whatever
Yeah,
that schedule looks
and
like
then
to
you
you.
guys celebrate is you're celebrating each other's wins too. Like it needs to be something that's supportive and
Hmm.
encouraging, and you feel like you're helping each other along. So yeah, there should be that. The other thing that I find is really helpful in a community is shared experiences and lived experiences, to be able to share that knowledge with each other and to have those lived experiences together. One thing that I really, really loved, and it's still to this day, every once in a while, I sit back and kind of shake my head at how surreal the moment was. But I remember one time, Troy and I, it was like the last day of Author Nation, and we were sitting in those couches out in the hall and we were like in the main area, and we were tired. We were exhausted. And we were just sitting there kind of just chilling for a minute, I guess. And Russell Nolte he walked over and sat down with us. And then I don't know if Becca was there, but it felt like Becca was there. There was a couple other people that came and sat down with us. Uh, some amazing authors that like I honestly before this time I didn't really know, but have since come to really love and respect and like, wow, can't believe they were sitting there next to us. Like, and um we were just talking like just about like some of the issues with AI, and we were kind of shooting ideas back and forth, and we were kind of like, it felt just very much like, well, this is my experience, and just like, what do you think about this? And they were shooting ideas back and forth, and then over walks Joanna Penn, and she sits down next to me on the couch, and I'm just like, and I had this moment, where I'm sitting there on this couch, and I'm like, Troy Lambert, Russell Nolte, Becca Syme, Joanna Penn, and I was just kind of having this moment, like I was sitting there, and I remember, I think I even said this out loud. I was like, this is a bit surreal, and I think even Joanna looked at me and she goes, yeah, you're right. It is a little surreal, isn't it? And I kind of had this moment of like, holy crap, this is fun. Like, this is the coolest group of people and
Yeah.
nerds that I could ever be associated with in my entire life. But it was because it was this shared experience of knowledge sharing and lived experiences. I mean, like, honestly, it wasn't even just book talk. It was just like, at one point Joanna was telling us how she loves to watch rugby and she couldn't wait to get home, and we were all kind of at that point worried how we were going to get home on our flights, because the airport, like, that was during the shutdown. It was like, and like TSA was like working pro bono at that point. There was no, like, airports were shutting
Yeah,
down,
there was
right?
all kinds of wacky stuff going
Yeah.
on.
So like Joanna
Yeah.
was like, I hope I get home. I have a rugby game to get to, and like we were just like having this moment. It was so cool. But that community, that friendship, that camaraderie, that doesn't come, those kinds of moments don't come from just being on a Facebook group. And that's kind of my point. This is what
Hmm.
the difference between that digital life versus that in-person life. And we talk about
Hmm.
AI a lot on this channel, but one of the things that I wanted to point out is like, that's the thing that I'm talking about when I'm talking about like real live connection that we're looking for as humans. You don't get that from AI, just like you don't get that from an online community, because when you're sitting down
Hmm.
on a couch and you're rubbing shoulders with these amazing humans, and even if it's just to take a deep breath and go, freak, is anybody else tired? That moment, it was very
Yeah.
surreal. It was very surreal.
Yeah.
So it's not
Well,
it's
and
not
it
something to shake a
like,
stick at. I think it's something that's really worth
oh no,
something.
not at all. And I mean, the thing is, like, there are some moments like that you can have on, let's say, a Zoom call if there's a
Right.
small number of people
Right.
or things like that. But once you get beyond a certain number of people, even in person, you start to lose the feel of that small group, right?
Right.
Because there's something. So, one of the things I also talk about a lot is when I was toiling away much of the time by myself with my online friends, right? Writing my first novel, figuring things out, releasing some books, figuring out what this self-published thing was all about, writing a bunch of stories. And I went to the Pacific Northwest Writers Association conference in
Mm-hmm.
Seattle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm feeling, at the time, I'm feeling pretty isolated, pretty alone, but I'm like, oh, my friends, some of my online friends are actually going to be at this conference. It's going to be
Mm-hmm.
amazing. And I walked in the door and walked into the open ceremonies moment and saw 500 people like me sitting in chairs in the room and went,
Mm-hmm.
oh, not so alone after all. So there is something to be
Mm-hmm.
said about walking into a place like Author Nation where there's 1,200 people running around, and most of them are doing the exact same thing you're doing, right?
Exactly.
They're figuring out this author life, because part of what Stacy said is like starting an author business and like wanting to do this for a living or even just make some money at it, right? Is much like starting a startup as an entrepreneur. except that you're constantly in startup mode because everything changes so
Everything
often,
changes so
right?
fast. Yeah.
But you have this amazing community of people around you who has been through all of that and who is going through the same thing you are, that you can rely on and
Mm-hmm.
trust and turn to and talk to in those small groups in the middle of these huge settings. So you know there's 1,200 people there, but you also know there's half a dozen people that are writing in your genre that are about your same level of career level that you can sit down and talk to, or that even just a little above your career level that you can sit down and talk to, have an intelligent conversation, learn something, walk away, and something that everybody in that little group can implement. And you can learn from people that are not at the highest levels, but that are just doing the work and say
Mm-hmm.
something and you go, whoa, that is a great idea right there,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot to be said for the in-person experience because a 500 person Zoom call does not feel the same as walking into a room with 500 people in it. The same as sitting with six people in Zoom, even though you can have some good moments there and it's not terrible at all, but there's a difference between that and walking into a area of couches and sitting down with six human beings and talking to them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So like your community, like as much as online community matters, and I'm not
I'm
going
not
to say that
shaken.
it
I'm
doesn't
not I'm not
matter
gonna
at
say it's
all,
not mattered. Yeah, I don't
that
it matters.
that in-person community matters more.
Right.
That is
Right.
more important for most people, even if you only get that a couple times a year.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
even if you only get little snippets of that, it's important to at least have those moments so you can see those faces on the other side of the computer are real people, you
Exactly.
know. So,
Exactly. Well, break this down into three key factors. Okay. So why community specifically matters to author businesses. Okay. Why it's so important for author businesses to have that community, that sense of community. And the first one, Troy and I've hit on a little bit, and that's the decision and risk management, right? Like understanding and knowing how to reduce
mhm.
risk and how to increase your decision making capabilities, right? Because like Troy said, you want to be able to bounce ideas off of people who are a little more experienced than you or who have done it and failed and can tell you, oh, don't do that, which that
Yeah.
happened to me. So, to have the sanity that comes from a community mind as opposed to just the one mind. What did it that Stacey Ennis would call it all the time? She would call it like
The
the
hive mind or
hive
something like
mind.
that.
Yeah. So she would talk about the hive mind a
Yeah.
lot. And I totally agree with that. I think that that's really helpful when it comes to your author business. The second thing is network effects. And the third one is emotional sustainability. So the second one, network effects, this is where your business grows, right? Like this is how, so like with Troy and
Hmm.
I, alone, we're very successful. Like he and I both, we have, like, I can continue to run this business the way I run it. My husband and I, can live happily and, you know, comfortably based on what I do. But the problem is that I can only reach a certain size audience and that I can't help as
Hmm.
many people as I want to. And what's amazing about that is I also don't have all the strengths that it requires to do as much as I want to do as well. So by combining with Troy, I've kind of like amplified what I'm capable of doing. And I hope that's the way Troy feels
Hmm.
about working with me. But that's kind of like what
Hmm.
the reason why you create these partnerships and these things. And when you go to these conferences and you go to these community kind of meetups, you can find people that can take those weaknesses from you and make you stronger, by helping you
Hmm.
build on those aspects of your business.
Right. Yeah, we've opened up our ability to scale more
Mm-hmm.
because we have someone that can fill in the gaps not only in our skill set but in our just the ability to, like, if it's even only us two editing, we can do a lot more. But if
Right.
it's us two plus we network with editors that both of us know, now we
Exactly.
can help a lot of authors that we
Exactly.
couldn't have helped before because we're just combining our networks and combining forces. So it's about skill sets and having those relationships, like Stacy and I's relationship, where you work together and you fill in each other's hole and you have different skills, but
Right.
you're also upping your network, your
Right.
ability to meet other people and
Exactly.
bring other people into your business to help
Right.
more people out. It's
The other
great.
the other
It's
aspect of
amazing.
this is the publishing side of things. When you're an author and you're publishing, you actually can't, like, it's very, very difficult for an author to be able to do everything that is involved in this business.
Hmm.
Even me, who runs the publishing side of things and like teaches authors how to do all these different aspects, even I have a network of professionals that I lean on for certain tasks, because sometimes those tasks that require that next level of skill I don't have. And there are people that niche in that. And, again, I'm going to rely and point my authors towards those people because they're the ones that can give them the best service possible. So, when you're creating the community of network professionals that you need to be a professional author, that is very much an essential part of your business. Um, and then sometimes referrals only happen through people. Like, I hate to say it, but it's totally true. And it's like the Genius Link thing, right? Like, I I love Genius Link and there's other people, but today when my marketing specialist was telling us, well, I use this other thing, and if I didn't have that personal relationship with Genius Link, I would have probably gone, okay, let's just go with that one. You know what I mean? But
Hmm.
because I know them personally, I'm going to
Yeah.
refer to them personally. So when people come to me and say, hey, I need somebody that I can do this, multi-universal book link thing, and I'm going to be like, them's you guys. So
Hmm.
it's just the way it is. So meeting people in person has a lot to do about that. One of the things that Troy and I are bouncing around right now is going to Nashville, for the Nashville Killer Nashville conference. And that is like, while it's like kind of like blowing my brain right now. do I have, I'm like, my brain
I
is
know.
oozing out of my ears right now going, oh, how am I going to make this happen? But at the same time, I'm thinking to myself, whatever I can do to get over to that side of the country, because we're pretty established over here. We have friends
Hmm.
that are over there. It would be great to get over there. In fact, we just I while we were talking about bouncing around the idea, we'd noticed that Reed Coleman, one of our authors from the anthology True Romance, that, by the way, if you haven't backed us on Kickstarter, head over there. But yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, he's one of our authors on the True Romance anthology, and he's one of their special guests this year. So it was like, oh, cool, we'll go over and we'll go meet Reed in person. It'd be awesome. It's just, it
Hmm.
says a lot for being able to meet these people in person and to kind of like touch base with them and everything. So yeah, I agree that networking in person is beneficial for a lot of reasons. Um, but
Hmm.
podcast swaps, book swaps. I have a client right now as an
Oh
author.
yeah.
He's writing a series of books, and then he has a friend who's a cop who's writing a series of books, and they've crossed characters between their two books to reference each other, right? So like they're
Hmm.
cross promoting each other, which is really a cool, fun way. And that seems to be a very profitable way to build your brand as an author.
Hmm.
So, that's fun.
Yeah. Again, you're multiplying your network and
Right.
reaching other people. And authors do this a lot. So
Mm-hmm.
that's another aspect of this community for authors, is finding co-authors. Now,
Mm-hmm.
co-authors have their pitfalls, and that's like probably a whole different podcast that we
Yeah,
could do. They have
well,
their pitfalls and
let's
their
just stay positive
advantages,
in this one.
right?
Yeah.
But we'll stay. We'll stay for the most part. There is a positive aspect to that, and part of that is that you're using both of each other's audiences, so you're
Yeah.
reaching more people. Hopefully, if everything's going the way it should be.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God, why am I
Yeah.
yawning? Because
It's been
it's
a
been
long
one of those
day
wacky days. I'm finally
already.
relaxed on our podcast. I'm like, ah. Anyway, but you can find co-authors, but you can also just find people that you can partner with and learn different things from. I have a friend of
Exactly.
mine who's a forensic pathologist in New York City, and the way we met is again in one of those K-Boards online groups. He's
Mm,
published a couple of novels. Now that he's retired, he's working on more. But he's a forensic pathologist that's worked in New York City and in Dade County, Florida. So
mm.
if you need to know something about the way people kill people and what the results of that look like, you just call him and he's probably got a story. He's probably testified about it in court, right?
Right.
So you don't
Mhm.
like that. And that's the kind of expertise. Like I know a couple of FBI agents and ex-FBI agents that I have met through different networking things that now, like, if I need to know how the behavioral sciences unit works, I call a guy who worked in the behavioral sciences unit at the FBI and ask him questions. And he answers them because he's writing a book. And so if he has questions about writing his book, he calls me and I answer his questions because I want him to answer when I call
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
give me those answers, right? So those in-person networking where you meet people like that, like you do not know, first of all, you don't know what that person across from you, like who they are and
Hmm.
what they know. Um, my
That's true.
friend Jim Lambert and I, we went down to Phoenix to a fan convention and we met an astronaut. Like, there's only so
Mm.
many astronauts in the whole history of the world, right? And she came and bought one of our books. We talked to her, right? We met an astronaut. Like, how often do you meet an astronaut? I'm like, can I come
Right.
stand by you or something?
Right.
Because it's just something that doesn't happen all the time. So that
Hmm.
in-person networking gives you opportunities you're not going to find anywhere else simply for the fact that you're just going to meet really cool people. So you and to a certain extent you have to be open to that. You introverts just set a couple days a year when you can be more of an extrovert and
Yeah,
go
just
meet
a little
people and
bit.
talk to them
Take a
because
gummy and go.
just a little, just a little,
Did
yeah,
I say that?
whatever you need,
Yeah,
whatever you
whatever you
need.
need. So and
Yeah,
then the last thing I talked about in this like these three why community matters is because of emotional sustainability, right? This job is not easy. Troy and I have talked about that a lot. And even like today, especially today feels very difficult. Like Troy and I are dealing with a lot of stuff on the backside of this business right now. And we're trying to get this Kickstarter off. And there's like, we're trying to figure out ads and we're trying to figure out like, organizing the year's conference schedules and like, and then on the same time, we're juggling clients and their manuscripts and and that's a struggle sometimes. It's not always easy working with you authors.
yeah,
But it's one of those things that like to have somebody like Troy to call and say, okay, I'm having a really hard day and know that he
yeah,
knows what I'm saying. Like, and it
yeah.
gives you that
Talk me off
it
the
yeah,
ledge.
talk me off the ledge.
Oh,
It gives us a little bit of a boost. Not necessarily to sit here and bitch at each other and complain. That's not it at all. It's more like an ability to say, okay, huddle. Like, what do we do? Like, how do we get through this? Okay. And
right.
then break. And then, and then we get, but again, it's also one of those places that I can call and say, oh my gosh, this is an amazing win. Like, look at what we just did. This is really cool. Or I got this idea. What do you think? Like, it makes slow seasons faster and more tolerable. It makes pivots easier to do. It prevents you from rage quitting. like right,
Oh,
like
yeah.
it prevents burnouts. Like if I didn't have Troy to lean on last, like in 2024, was it 2024? Yeah, I would have quit this business. This was like I was on the pivotal edge of just going, okay, I'm done.
Oh,
And having somebody there to go, we got this, like you got this. It's really
yeah.
helpful. So community helps with that.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. If you ever anybody who ever tells you that they're never on the edge and they never think about those type of things with this business is, first of all, they're liars. Okay,
Right.
they're not being truthful, either not being truthful with themselves or just not being truthful with you or whatever.
Right.
But whatever the case may be, because this is a hard business, but and there's emotions involved,
Mm-hmm.
and it's good to be able to take those emotions and not place them on your clients and instead talk them through with somebody. Like,
Right.
I like there's a client right now that like I am unhappy with them. At the same time, I really like them, right? So I don't want to go all rage monster on them. I want to learn to handle this moment of stress professionally,
Mm-hmm.
right? Well, then I have my partner, my business partner to rely on to
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, help me to
Yeah.
understand how not to do this.
Like how
And
not to
then
kill
we
this
have
person.
other clients where I have strengths and
Yep.
Stacy and I have strengths. So
Mm-hmm.
we both are helping that client by doing different things for them.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And also helping them with their emotional part of understanding, like, I understand book launches are stressful. I understand all
Mm-hmm.
these things are stressful, but there's only so much that we can do, and there's no publishing emergencies, right?
Yeah. Like it's
There
just a
just aren't
workaround.
any. It might feel like it in the moment, but
But just
there's
you just
not an emergency.
it's just you work around
Just,
like it, but that's the beautiful thing, right? Like
just,
sometimes you might like have a panic attack and then you can like be like, oh my gosh, and then the other person be like, hold on, chill out, like there's a workaround here, let's have you thought about
mhm.
this? So those kinds of things,
Let's just calm down
it
and
just really helps. It really
yeah,
really helps. So the key line here is you don't
yeah.
need to build, you don't need to like, you don't need to look to an algorithm. Your opportunities and things, they don't come from algorithms. They come from these in-person communities, right? Like or at least, like these smaller abilities, like the communities online, maybe even that would serve the same network or the same purpose. um the next thing I wanted to touch on was kind of some lies that people think about. And it's and I know I've heard these lies in my own life a couple times. But you guys need to know they're lies. So the first thing is I'm not successful enough to join this community. And that isn't a lie.
Oh,
That is a lie. Like I want you to just, it's one of the things that I've had to tell a couple of business owners that I've actually coached. One was she was opening an audio book business, and she's like, I just don't think I'm not successful enough to do this. And she's like, I've just started. I'm like, oh no, 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 no. You get your business cards. You go,
yeah.
you put your butt right in the middle of that community and you say, here I am. Here I am. Like, no,
Yeah,
you are
exactly.
successful. I mean, I can't even imagine how many times people have actually done that and like felt so alive, realizing that they're not the only ones doing it. Like, like like sometimes
Oh
like you go,
yeah.
like we went to Other Nation again. Like I hate bringing this back up again, but it was really funny. I was sitting across the way, and like here I am. I'm a seasons, running my business now for over a decade, and close to I don't know, I think I'm close to 400 authors at this point, and like just sitting there and I'm kind of like, okay, yeah, I've done this before, this is no big deal. And we're sitting there and we set up our booth, and by the way, this is after we'd had to move our booth like 4 times because they messed up the
Oh yeah.
back.
Oh my goodness.
That was fun. But anyway, so we'd moved like 4 times. Finally, I'm finally like, we're not moving again, we're staying here. And so we set the booth up, and as I'm just finishing up, Troy goes to make some rounds, and I look across the way and there's this cute little editor, and she's setting up her booth, right? And she's got little stickers and pens, and she's so cute, and she had her little tablecloth and everything. And I went over and I was like, hey, how you doing? Like, I'm Stacy, nice to meet you. And I just kind of like chit chatting, and I'm like, so what do you edit? And she's, oh, I edit just everything. And I immediately went, oh no, 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 no,
You're
no,
like, oh
don't
no,
you
you don't.
dare start this conference like that. Like, no, you do not. You pick a few and yes, stick with it, and this is what you're doing. And I was like, and then if you need help help, let me know. As soon as that vendor day was over, that little girl was following, and I say little girl, she was a grown woman, but she was following us, right? She went with us to like every meal, every class. She was like
Hmm.
on our heels the whole conference because she was just eating it up. It was our very first conference, folks. It was the very first conference. She literally had never even had any of her previous editing manuscripts published before. Like, she was brand new, and she was just soaking in all the information and all the knowledge and all the mentorship she could get. And she was, if somebody had told that girl, you're not successful enough to go to Author Nation, she would have missed out on so much meaty networking.
So much
Like,
opportunity.
there's so much opportunity that she
Oh,
would have missed out on. So no, you're never too young in the business, or too old in the business, to not go to these communities. No, that's a lie.
right. I mean, the thing is, like, the old saying of you fake it until you make it
I
is
know
real,
it kind of means
right?
it. Like, yeah,
Like,
it's kind of weird.
like, we kind of mean it.
I kind of
And
mean
I
it.
mean, because part of that is like, if you wait until you make it to start, well, okay,
You know, when is that going to
then
happen?
you're not going to start,
Yeah.
because it's just like if you wait for the perfect time to start things, well, there is no perfect time to
Yeah.
start. It just
It
doesn't
just doesn't
happen.
work.
So,
So you
like, oh
can't
my
wait till your book
goodness,
is done.
that's a huge, huge lie, because part of it is like you walk in. So, like, when I first met, so there's a couple of guys I met, Robert Degoni and David
Mm,
Baldacci, who are both well-known thriller authors now,
hmm.
right? And I met them both when I was a baby author, and they were not nearly as popular as they are now, at a
Right.
conference. And so you sit in the bar and you talk with these guys. You don't know who's going to be the big hit next. You
Yeah.
know, they didn't, like, neither one of them knew that I would later run conferences and run workshops and invite them to come to them. There was no way for any of us to know that at the time. All we
Hmm.
were doing was sitting down and doing things. And I was like, I think at that time, I had released a collection of short stories, but my novel was not out yet. My first novel was not out yet. So, like, I didn't even, like, at the stage that probably some of you are at now, like, I was right there. Like,
Yeah.
we all started somewhere, right?
Right.
And
Hmm.
so there's just all kinds of opportunity there to just go and be
Yeah.
present. And you
So
don't know what's going to happen.
yeah,
You have
you
no
don't need to
idea.
think, well,
Anyway,
I don't, everybody knows more than me. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
doesn't make any
I don't
difference.
want to bother people. Like, that's another one that I think is
Oh,
funny.
don't say that.
Don't ever say that.
Oh,
So I love
oh,
Joanne. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, tell me. Go ahead.
I was just going to say something really quick that I
Go.
always tell people. And last year I had it happen. So I was at LTUE at this conference in Utah that I'm going to next week. And I
Mm-hmm.
sat on a panel. I'm like, don't ever be afraid to just walk up to one of the presenters or the speakers that you want more of the time and
Mm-hmm.
offer to take them to lunch, because it's highly unlikely that most of us would turn out down free food. Look around the panel. We all enjoy
We all
food.
enjoy lunch.
It's clear by who we are. We all enjoy lunch, right? And so one of the guys that was like a brand new author came up
Mm-hmm.
to me and one of the other presenters, and he said, "You said it, so I would like to take you to lunch because I want to pick your brain.
Oh,
And you
cool.
pick the place, and I'll take you." So don't be afraid to do that. Like, and when I say that, I sincerely mean it. Like, I went to lunch with him. I took one
Mm-hmm.
of our fellow presenters. We went to lunch with him, and he picked our brain the whole lunch hour.
Yeah.
Perfect. He
I
got an
think
opportunity just because he said yes to that.
I think I
Right?
really liked that
Yeah.
aspect of the Idaho Writers Guild luncheons, like that they would do, where you could go to lunch with the presenter. I thought that that was a really fun part of that conference when we were part of that, because I thought that that
Hmm.
really gave you. Now, if they got too busy, like that, and that's the thing. I think I like that they put limits on those, and that only 3 to
Hmm.
5 people could go, because it would get sometimes it became a pitch session, and that
Hmm.
was like really kind of not fun for everybody. But if you're going and you're just going to have a
Right.
fun luncheon, that is always a good thing to do. Yeah, so you're never going to build community after success. Like, you become more
Right.
unapproachable after success. I mean, how many people do you think go up to Robert Patterson and say, or James Patterson and say, "Hey, can I take you to lunch?" Like, because he's going to be like busy, like he's,
Well,
you know what I
and
mean?
like think about this. What happens too when you find success is, first of all, you become busier
Yeah.
because
Hmm.
that's a natural
That's
outpouring
just
of
a natural
success.
thing. Yeah.
If you think that you're going to be able, once I get my first novel out and it goes ballistic, I'll be able to relax. That's hilarious. Um, it's not going to
Doesn't
happen for
work
you.
that
So
way.
you're going to get busier, and people are going to want to take you to lunch and
Right.
pick your
And
brain.
pick your brain.
Right.
Hmm.
So there's never going to be a better time to do it. Like Warren Miller always said in his ski films, if you don't do it this year, you'll be 1 year older when you do.
Yeah.
Like, don't
That's so true.
wait, because you're never going to arrive at a level where suddenly you feel comfortable doing some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Just do it. Do it
Yeah.
now when you can.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, anyway, I could preach
Well,
on that all day long.
yeah,
But
we
anyway,
could we could literally do that. I want to
yeah.
I want to outline a little bit what a healthy community looks like as opposed to maybe a toxic community. There are healthy and toxic communities out there, and you should be aware of them. And that can mean different things for different people. But like I said in our last podcast, I have a client that has contacted me, and she's like, that's one of her things, right? She was in a writers group that she felt like kind of just toxically wrote, like kind of like pushed her out of writing and the enjoyment factor of that. So you got to be careful that you're not with a community that's going to take away your fire and your
Oh.
love for this business. But healthy communities, they have a few things. They have clear expectations, they have shared
Hmm.
standards, there is education and accountability, which we've talked about already. And there is room for questions and growth. If you're in a community that doesn't have those
Hmm.
things, then you're probably in a community that's not necessarily healthy. And I'm going to say that if you've got a bunch of, and this is going to, I hope I don't go off, and I'm not going to go on a tangent, but I'm going to say that this is what a lot of like current communities in our society do right now is there's a lot of rage, like community outrage and doom scrolling that kind of happens, and that is not healthy. That there's no growth that comes from that kind of attitude. So if you find that you're constantly angry, or that you're constantly like this group just constantly just sits there and complains about stuff, then that's not a good community to be part of. And that's one of the reasons why Troy and I have actually kind of find ourselves leaving some communities that were once very good and wonderful for us, but that later became toxic. If there's no forward motion, that's the
Right.
other major thing. If there's nothing going forward, and if you're not growing together as a community, and again you're staying stagnant and nobody's getting anything out of it, then what's the point of the community? And then the one that I
Hmm.
absolutely hate, and this I see this a lot on Facebook groups, is this predatory upsell, self promotion kind of thing. if
Mm.
if that's all you're doing, is if
Yeah.
you're in a community that all they're doing is preying on, like, well, you go buy my thing, or hey, buy my book, or buy my book, or buy my book, and then there's no like shared knowledge exchange, there's not, I don't see that as being a very healthy community. Like, I don't feel like
No.
that's going to do you
No.
any good.
And I feel just a tiny little rant. I'll keep it
Oh
very
no.
tiny and
Oh no.
small. Little
Rant, rant,
rant
rant,
coming
rant,
up.
rant.
Rant alert. I know, I know. But there's a thing that I see. There's a few, like I know several other writing teachers besides
Mm,
myself, right, that teach
hmm.
about the craft of writing. And there's one that I know that welcomes questions
Okay.
is actually a fairly humble person themselves,
Okay.
and like they're fairly approachable. You can, and I'm
Okay.
not going to name any names because I'm going to keep it nice and friendly and quiet
Okay.
and that type of thing. But this particular person, like they are very approachable. They provide a lot of support for free to writers along with their teaching that they do, which is
Okay.
one thing you should look for, right? Is that
Hmm.
person shouldn't always have their hand out for money. They should be giving things out to you because they actually care about the writing community, right?
Right. Right.
I have free webinars every month for the
Oh
reason
yeah.
that I actually care.
We'll
It's
we'll
not the
we'll talk about
incentive to
those in a
get you to
minute.
buy something, but
No.
yeah, we'll talk about those in a minute, right? But like
Hmm.
they need to be giving back as well as asking. Like it can't be a constant ask. I
Right.
know another writing teacher that has literally gotten to the point where I have had conference promoters contact me and say, if you're organizing anything, do not invite this person.
Wow.
Do not invite them because they are very predatory. They're always doing something. They're not very helpful to their people if they invite into their community. They're not responsive. And there have been a number of people that have said that this is a toxic community environment.
Mm.
And I just wanted to let you know that this has happened at our conference. So please don't have this person come to your conference or any of the
Mm.
other events that you might organize. Ow.
That's that
Yikes.
that's
Like,
like
first of all, it
next,
hurts my heart to hear that,
but yeah, it's almost like
you
blacklisting
know?
somebody, right? It's like, woof, that could kill a
Yeah, it
career.
it hurts my heart to hear it, but it also at the same time, like it in some ways it doesn't surprise me. There are communities that people build around themselves and their ego
Hmm.
and what they think they're trying to do, and they don't welcome questions and they don't welcome interactions in front of in their with their community members. They want you to always interact with them and focus on them and the
Mm.
things that they're teaching and things that they're doing, and that produces a very toxic environment that's not allowing for the normal challenge and exchange of ideas that authors really need to have. I mean,
Well,
that
and
we
that they
need in all kinds
crave.
of
Yeah,
communities,
right.
but very specifically in the author community, because I mean
Hmm.
it's kind of true in a lot of different communities, but I don't want to talk about those communities right now
We're talking about
because I might
writing
go on a different
communities.
type of rant
Hmm.
that's not popular. But anyway, and I mean, this includes groups that talk about AI. Look, if you are absolutely opposed to AI, then there are certain groups you should just not be a part of because they're going to talk about it as if it is a normal part of the writing community and it is
Right.
here to stay, which it probably is, but then there are other groups that are so pro AI that you can't say
You
anything
can't
to
say anything.
disparage the way it's being
Right.
used at the moment. You can't say anything about AI because they don't welcome it. I mean, the one thing I did like, there was a New York Times article this week
Oh,
about
yeah.
romance and
We
being
talked
written with
about it
AI
over
and
on the
stuff like
writing
that. But
life
one thing I
or the
liked
writer's life.
about it, we talked about it over on the writer's life, but
Hmm.
when I went and read the article, what was interesting about it is that every person who was quoted in that article who is using it, even if they use AI for a draft, talked about how necessary it was to revise that draft and add the human elements.
Yes, they did.
Every one of them. And the reason is because that's what's necessary. But there are communities that you walk into with that are pro AI writing or whatever that will literally shut down any discussion of that and say, "Hey, we're working so that AI you won't even have to revise your draft." Which, like Vince and I talked about on the Writer's Life, like first of all, part of the fun of writing is the discovery of writing a draft and the discovery of doing that revision yourself. That's
Exactly.
part of the fun of it. I write for fun, not for money. If I'm going to do something for money, I'm going to go do something else. But as I've also often said, but also just you should at least be willing to have the discussion. And even if you don't believe that what that person is saying is true, then take an opportunity to have a discussion with them and educate them. right?
Or vice
Let's
versa. Maybe
not
there's
be
a
shutting
perspective that,
down.
yeah, maybe there's a perspective that you need to take. Like it's the same thing. It's a, community
Hmm.
discourse and then, communities town, at the city center where, these discussions used to take place. Healthy debates actually are what make society continue to grow, right? You can't grow if you're constantly
Hmm.
just beating each other in the head. And the same thing is true for these writing communities. You guys have to like be open
Right,
to and
exactly.
be willing to have that discourse, right? So
Right.
yeah,
You have to
so
meet in the middle somewhere.
right.
You
So if a
know,
community
it
never
really
helps you
is.
make
That's, yeah.
better decisions, then it's not the space. You should just make that one of your standards. If this is not helping me make better decisions, then I'm not in a community. I'm in a support group. Right? Like
Right.
I'm
Exactly. I'm in an
yeah.
affirmation group
I'm
and a
in an
support group,
yeah,
right? Because
like
that's a
right.
different thing.
That's a different
That's a
thing.
that's a different thing.
Um,
But hey, some of you can go to your family for that. It
yeah,
wasn't my case,
like
but a lot of you can go to your family and your mom if you want compliments on
if
your
you want compliments,
writing.
yeah, go to your
That's
mom.
not what we're after usually. We're after
Yeah,
feedback and learning and growth.
right,
And so that should be a part of any community you're a part of.
right,
Anyway,
right.
rant over,
Rant over. Okay,
serenity
so
now.
the
Yes.
so the last kind of thing I want to hit on here is how authors can actually start building a community. Like how can they start working on building a community right now? So what you want to do is you want to create some doable steps, right? So audit your current circles. Look at where you're at right now. Who am I interacting with in my writing business? Like are these again, are they support groups or are they communities? Like what am I gaining and what am I you know learning from these things? And just like when we talked about reducing the need for too many tools, like scale it down, like
Hmm.
participate in those groups that are going to continue to feed you and that are not taking extra effort or taking you away from the writing process. So make sure that you're actually moving forward with your communities. And then make sure that you're like sharing insights, asking smart questions. It's not about your ego. Don't make it be about your forward facing, like here I am, like you want to make sure that you're being a contributor and that you're gaining information, or learning information from that community. And then finally, choose fewer, like I said, better places to be, like scale down. So make sure that
Hmm.
you're like not spreading yourself out too thin. It's kind of like when Troy and I were looking at this year's, conference schedule. We're like, okay, which conferences do we want to attend? Because we can't attend them all. First of all, they're thousands and thousands of dollars for us to go as
Hmm.
a sponsor slash vendor. Like it costs so much money to go to these conferences. So we have to decide, okay, which ones are we planning on focusing on? And we scaled it down. We decided, okay, these are the ones we're going to work on this year. So that's just the best way to approach this. Make sure that you're sticking with going to conferences that kind
Hmm.
of align with your brand or align with your goals, align with your end results that you're shooting for, right? So yeah, that's what I would
Hmm.
say as far as like looking at the communities that you're part of now. Do you have any feedback on that, Troy, that you want to add to that?
Well, yeah, I would just say like belonging to national organizations has some advantages
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, but like
Mm-hmm.
there are conferences, there are groups that Vince and I both belong to that we do not go to their conferences in general
Mm-hmm.
because they've become too large and very, very expensive.
Yeah, I'm a part of
And
some
so
editor
the
groups like that.
return that you get from those, is relatively small
Mm-hmm.
compared to the tremendous cost, along with the amount of time that it takes you. So don't ever underestimate the amount of time that certain things take you. But
Right.
when it comes to small, like if you do not have a small local group, start one at your
Start one.
library. You
Yeah.
may be surprised by who shows up,
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
And just start small with very low expectations. And then probably biggest advice of all is keep it small.
Keep it. Yeah,
Like
try to
there's a
keep it
certain
small.
group
Yeah.
of like professional authors in our area that like there's a few of us that want to meet up for like brunches and stuff like that on a pretty limited basis. And the reason we do it that way, and the reason we limit it, is because we only want a certain type of author there and certain groups of authors there,
Mm-hmm.
because we want to discuss things that are related to that tier level,
Yeah,
right? And we
exactly.
want to feel free to do that without having to bring someone along that we say, well, we know you don't understand this, but we don't have time to explain it to you, and we don't want you to feel out of your depth or feel bad, but at the same time, this is what we need to talk about, right?
Right. Right.
So ideally, keep it small and keep things focused, because that's the way that you're going to have the most meaningful discussions, the most meaningful community,
True.
really.
True.
So, yeah.
True. Well, so just I guess this is a great conversation we've had about like those communities and how to make them work for you. But remember that when you're an author, you're a creator and a business owner. There's two hats that you're wearing. This is something that we talk about in the Print to Pro platform, right? We talk about how you're wearing these two hats and how to balance those two parts of your creative and business roles. And it's okay to need support in either one of those or both, so just remember that a community is meant to be that, a support. So and an encouragement and some place you grow. Like these things.
Yeah.
So just so you know, like Troy and I are both teaching our February webinars this month, and they are about to kick off. Mine is this Thursday. It is so let's see.
Oh,
What is it? I'm looking at the calendar. Let me look. So mine will
it'll be
be,
before this is aired,
yeah. Actually, will it?
or is it the following
No, it's the
Thursday?
following. Yeah, so it's going to be the next Thursday. So when you air when this airs, it'll be this next Thursday. And the Print to Pro Power Session is this year or this month. This month is going to be building your author brand that sells. So I have a really great tool that I put together for you guys. It's a nice way to check in and make sure that your brand is actually working for you. We're going to break down what that actually means and how to leverage that in your business. And it's going to be a great discussion. So that's going to be what's going on at the power session. Troy, he's going to be following up on Tuesday, the 24th with his Plot
Hmm.
Dude course or Plot Dude webinar. And can you tell everybody what your craft class is going to be about this month, Troy?
Oh, I could, sure. I believe mine's on motivation.
It is character motivation.
Um, the character motivation
Yeah.
this month. Sorry, I've been working on some other things as well, but it's on character motivation this month, and partly it kind of spun out of last month's,
Hmm.
where I was actually going to have a different topic this month, but I switched it to character motivation, which hopefully I'm going to try not to do that too much throughout the year, but every now and then a
Yeah.
discussion just comes up and I have to
You
change my
have to
focus.
change it. Yeah. Got it.
But anyway, so it's going to talk about character motivations, which is really awesome because, like, I'm working with a client about this, and then I'm revising one of my own manuscripts and looking at this
Hmm.
information as well. So, character motivations, super important things. This is the stuff that drives your story forward, that really is
Hmm.
your story engine. And so we're going to talk about those things in a lot of detail. Many
Cool.
of you know I talk about goal, motivation, and conflict a lot. This just happens to be the motivation piece of that. So it's going to be
That's
super
awesome.
fun. There'll be lots of information. There's a nice little handout for you at the end of it, so that you have something to work with, something to take home and work with, free homework,
Free
that
homework.
type of thing. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, free
So yeah.
homework, but it hopefully useful, hopefully
Yeah,
something
well,
that
that's
helps
what
you
we
think
want.
and is useful.
That's the
Um,
whole point of these, right? So the craft and the business,
and
right? So Troy and I
yeah.
are wanting to give you guys some meat that you can take home and actually put into action right away. So anyway, if you want to register for those, they're free. They're on printtopro.com. You can find them on the homepage. Just scroll down. You're going to find my registration link for the power sessions, and Troy's down there as well for this month's character motivation class. So just register for those and get yourself into those things, because they're going to be great. Also, and furthermore, you should know that Brad Fraser will be with us, and that will air on the 28th. So if you're interested in copyright and IP and how that relates to the AI world right now, and how it might actually play into your business, then this is going to be an awesome podcast. And Brad Fraser from Holly Troxel will be with us on that week. So if you're interested, make sure you stay tuned and subscribe and follow, and you'll get your notification when we drop that into the YouTube verse,
notification bell,
or in the
all the
podcast verse.
things.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
And you can follow us on your favorite podcast platform if you're not already following us on podcasts. But we are not just on YouTube. We are actually on your podcast platform. So if you're interested in, just popping us in your ears while you're cleaning your house or driving on the road, we're happy to accommodate. But anyway, yeah. So we appreciate you guys being with us. Troy, do you have any final thoughts before we close today?
Nope.
Okay.
That's it.
Awesome.
Find your tribe.
Awesome. Find your tribe.
Right.
Yeah. Write more, read more, be weird, be kind. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.